to tie up a popular little topwater fly in warm water circles. This is a fly called the STP Frog. It is simply two foam bodies tied down, rubber legs across it, and then glued together. Very straightforward, but it's a fun, easy fly to tie. You can have a bunch of these. They fish very, very well. They don't pop on the water like a popper would, but with just a little bit of slow pulling, you get a nice surface disturbance. Sometimes, especially in brighter days or warmer temperatures, sometimes that's what the smallmouth and largemouth prefer. That's the STP Frog. I'll get started tying. I'm going to start the STP Frog with my hook in the vise. This is a Mustad 3366 in a size 2. For the bodies that I'm using on these that I've cut out, and I'll explain in just a minute, this is a good size because you want this little notch right here. This is kind of the back of the head. You want that to be just right behind the eyes. When you do that and then you fold this piece all over, which gets tied in like this, basically you can tie this tag end in almost up to the eye, and when that all folds over, it doesn't take up too much of the gap of the hook, and that little notch there is going to be right there behind the eye of the hook. Now you may notice this hook is a little bit scratched up, has a little fuzz on it right here. This was actually from a previous STP Frog. Sometimes your hooks, your flies will get all chewed up through fishing them, and the fly itself maybe isn't viable anymore, but the hook itself is still good. Take a double-edged razor or X-Acto knife or something like that to it, and you can scrape all that off. You've got a perfectly good hook for another fly. So I'm going to secure this in my vise. I'm going to attach my thread. I've already debarbed this. Like I said, it was a previously used hook. For thread, I'm using a Danville 210 Denier in white. Thread color doesn't matter. As you will see, it will all be covered up in a little bit. I want to attach my thread maybe about an eye length or so behind, I should say 2 eye lengths behind the eye of the hook here. Now, the bodies are cut out with some STP Frog body cutters from River Road Creations. When you cut these out, this is the largest one that they have in a set of 3. It's going to have the body here plus this tag end. You can trim that tag end off if you want, if it's too long. It's up to you. What I find is with this size hook, I can tie this in right on the underside like this, with this right behind the eye of the hook. And that's going to give me the body and position and length that I'm looking for. And I'm tying this in just kind of light, getting it down to the hook shank at this moment, all the way back to where it just meets up with the rest of the body right back here. Then I'm going to come forward and tuck this into the gap of the hook. It can be kind of a pain sometimes. You can actually just have that hanging out on the side if you want, right here, and it's fine. But then I'm going to go back and forth a couple of times, getting all of that body down to the hook shank. When you cut these out, you can make the STP Frog all one color if you want. Say if you want all green, you can make it two-toned. In this case, I'm making it two-toned, a orange belly with a black top to it. Now you can do this in either way. It's up to you. You do want to tie these in so that they're basically the same. So they will both fold over at the same spot. And these spots right here, and we have some leeway here, I'll show you, will end up right behind the eye of the hook. Some people will like to color the foam. You can actually even buy some foam with a frog pattern on it. If you want, you can take the, say if you want to do this in all green with the frog pattern, you could paint it ahead of time. You could put some spots on it with a marker, Sharpie or something, or Copic airbrush system or something like that to add some character, some leopard stripes, whatever you want. So with both of those bound in, I'm going to leave my thread maybe about an eye length in front of the very back here. I'm going to tie in the legs. Legs are also kind of your choice. I'm using some orange Sili Legs here. They have a lot of body to them, meaning that they're not real stiff like rubber legs. Rubber legs over time will basically decompose and get kind of dry, brittle, and snap. Sili Legs aren't as strong as rubber legs in terms of endurance and being pulled on, but they're limber and have a lot of life to them. Now I'm going to take, this is essentially one strip of Sili Legs right here that I'm using, and I'm just splitting it in half, I want to leave these tabs on there just because then they won't get the legs won't all get in my way as I'm tying the rest of the fly. Right where my thread is, I want to go ahead and tie in a couple of crisscross wraps to tie in these legs. I'm going to come back across, and when I come over on the other side here, just take your time, kind of be gentle with this. Once I get a couple wraps across here, there, I can pull up on the legs like this, kind of scooching them back and forth, and you'll see the wraps will go across, and the legs will be bound in going straight across, as opposed to a wrap or two, canting it off one way or another. Once that's in place, you can then put in a few extra wraps to really bind those in. They don't have to be, super bound in and cranked in here, because as you'll see in a little bit, when we glue the two halves of the body together, we're going to be using some Zap-A-Gap, some CA glue for that. I'm going to move my legs forward. When I tie this in, again, I want these little notches right here to be right behind the eye of the hook. That means in this little bulge right here is where my legs come out. I'm going to bring my thread forward to that area, and I'm going to tie the second batch of legs in. And again, there's a reason why I leave these long with the tab on the end here where they're all collected. It just keeps them from splitting apart and getting in my way. We will take care of that in just a little bit. But just like the rear ones, I'm going to get a couple of wraps in here. Those might be a little bit forward. They might interfere with the front. So I'm going to drop those back just a little bit. I get two wraps in one direction, bring it across, a couple wraps in the other direction, and then again I can pull on those legs, even move them back and forth a little bit to get them in the position I want. And then I can get a few more wraps across to tighten those down a little bit. I don't want to tighten too much because the Sili Legs, you can split these, meaning cut them in half. Now I'm going to bring my thread right up to almost behind the eye right here. I'm going to glue in the bottom side first, So flipping those legs over, see, by having these tabs on, I don't have a whole bunch of legs all over the place. You could use a gel if you want. Something has a little bit more working time on it. I'm just using, this is a Loctite super glue here. All I want right here is to get a little bead of this along those threads. I don't want to saturate that or anything, because now I'm going to set this in place where that notch that I mentioned is just right behind the eye of the hook, about where my thread is hanging. I'm going to set this down so that the hook shank goes down the middle of the foam body, and I'm going to press all of this down. Now, if you wanted to, I've got a little bit of a fold back here, so I could have clipped a little bit off that tag end and tied that in, so that right there would be closer towards the back end of the body, but I don't think it makes a difference. It still fishes very well. Of course, if you used like a Tiemco 8089 in a size 2 or something like that, I think you would these would be just fine, because it has a little bit longer shank hook. So now I have, as you can see, I have the body glued down to the other side, and my thread actually is right in that notch where I want it to be. Now I'm going to take some super glue and I'm going to put it right across the top here. And I'm going to put a little bit on the sides, because I'm going to end up gluing those together in just a second. Same thing, position that with that notch. Now you're just basically matching up the other end here. I'm going to squeeze this together, making certain one body's right on top of the other one. Squeeze and hold those together. We have some gaps here. We can fill these in just a second. This gets the mainstay of the body together. Pulling those legs back, I'm going to bring my thread around right where that little notch is, and I'm going to put 2 wraps in here. Then I'm going to pull tight on this. Now I'm not pulling so tight that you could easily cut into that foam. That's not what I want. What I want is that to be anchored right in there so that these can split back and fold back a little bit. I get 2 or 3 more wraps in, secure that, and I'll put a whip finish in. 3-turn whip finish right there. We're going to put some head cement on this and secure that. Put a bunch of head cement right across there, across here. It's going to help secure that thread wrap. Soak down in there. But this can split apart like this so that when we're fishing it, it just moves a little bit of water. It doesn't have a huge amount of life to it. It just moves a little bit of water. Now the back end here, in order to get this foam together, and even on this side, it looks like I'm going to move my legs forward and back. And I'm going to put a little bit of super glue right in there and in the back side here. Again, you can pinch these with your fingers if you want. Just be careful not to put too much glue in there and get it squeezing out on your fingers. Or you could have some tweezers or something like that if you want. Hold those together. It only takes a second or two. We've got the side all glued together. I go to the other side here. I'll move these forward. Put just a little bit of glue in here. And I'm going to squeeze that forward. Or I should say squeeze that together. Just going to take a second. I'd say maybe about 15, 20 seconds. And that is all together. So that is basically our STP Frog. Real simple and straightforward. The legs in the back here, I want to leave those long. I'm going to collect those up here. I'm going to cut those fairly long. And then the ones in front, I'm going to actually cut those a little bit shorter. You can vary up the mount if you want. If you want less up front here and more in the back, it's up to you. The only other thing that's kind of fun to do with these is to put some eyes on these. I got a little bit of a gap right there still. Should have checked for that before, but there you have it. So I'm going to put just a drop of glue in there. Squeeze that together. What this really does is it just helps the fly to be more durable. So that will hold that together real well. So the last thing that you can do if you want to is to put on some eyes to these. A lot of people, myself included, like to put on these little doll eyes like this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to, back in the back of the head here, I'm just going to put a half a drop of super glue right there. Maybe a little bit more, half a drop right there. Take my tweezers, grab one of these eyes and just place it on there. You want to just do it that way because if you move it around a lot, I just dropped it on the floor. So I recovered that one from off the floor. But as I was saying is you don't want to put a lot of glue and you don't want to touch your hands to these a lot. So it's best to just use some tweezers if you got some. Put those on there and then you can just gently push down. Doesn't take much at all, 10-15 seconds. Keeping in mind that that's going to hold those in, and by the time you take this out of the vise and then set it aside, that will all cure up and it'll be in great shape. I'm going to put just a little bit more head cement along those thread wraps back there, just to help reinforce that a little bit. But that is an STP Frog. Real simple, real basic. You can find patterns out on the internet that you can trace out on a piece of paper and cut out, you know, for the foam if you want. If you don't want to use the cutters. They're pretty straightforward in terms of printing them out and then cutting them out, putting them on your foam, marking it, and getting the body and everything. Fun fly to experiment. You could even put some rubber legs off the back of this if you want to, but it's a fun little topwater fly, very simple to make. That's the STP Frog. Thanks for watching today. Thank you for joining me at the Vise today. I hope you learned a new pattern, at least a tip or trick here and there. If you'd like to help Dress Irons, you can like, comment, share, subscribe, all those wonderful things for the video. You can also head out to dressedirons.com where you can buy flies, tools, stickers, and merch, or you can join a growing community over on Locals at the Dressed Irons Fly Tying Guild. You can also donate to Dressed Irons if you want through the link at the bottom of the description. I thank everybody for their ongoing support, as it really does help the creation of these videos. And what's important is to remember, only fly tying. If you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong.